Hey, what's up guys, Bajheera here. So for this video, I'm going to be taking you guys through some of the Fury Warrior changes that we've seen in the latest version of the Legion Alpha, because they have changed some things that are pretty important to the way Fury Warrior is going to play. They've introduced new abilities, they've done a lot of changes to our talents, and they've changed some of our abilities pretty drastically. So everything looks good still, just interesting to see what they've decided to do, and let's take a look at it. Alright, so we're going to get started by looking at our abilities first, because certain abilities are affected by your talents and vice versa. So there's a fewer changes to your abilities than talents, I think. So that's where we're going to start with that. So the first thing to notice is our ability that was called Recklessness. I guess it was called like Battle Shout, I think, and then it was called Recklessness. Now it's just being called Battle Cry. It's the same ability that we had in the Legion Alpha already. It's a 1 minute cooldown. That's going to grant us 100% chance to crit on everything for the next 5 seconds. Really cool ability. Very, very Fury. But now it's called Battle Cry, and you can see it has the old Inner Rage icon for its tooltip icon, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's not really much change, just they changed the name of it in the tooltip icon. So still a cool ability. That's one of our main offensive cooldowns is Fury. Berserker Rage usually is a minute-long cooldown that's going to break you out of fear, sap, and incapacitate effects. The reason why it's a 30-second cooldown is because I've talented it, and it also enrages you because of the talent that I've chosen as well. So we'll get into that in a second. Bloodthirst, I don't think much has changed. Maybe they changed some damage modifier on it. It doesn't look like the cooldown has changed very much. This is a big ability for Fury, not only because it triggers your enrage when it crits, but it also hits pretty hard and heals you and generates rage, which is all really nice. The healing is more than it is in the past. For Legion, it's a pretty big heal. Really nice and good damage on it too. Charge is pretty much the same, although it's a root now for sure on a 20-second cooldown. Does generate 20 rage. Commanding Shout, which is what basically Rallying Cry used to be. You're gonna increase the maximum health of all party members, within a certain yard radius of you for 10 seconds. So pretty much the same thing, just a nice little Rallying Cry for your teammates, but now it's called Commanding Shout. One of the big things that has changed is Enraged Regen. It does not work like it used to at all. Basically, this is our shield wall that's going to give us a little bit more health regen from Bloodthirst. So it reduces the damage taken by 30%, and Bloodthirst restores an additional 20% health. So basically, you're taking 30% less damage, and Bloodthirst is going to be healing you for a total of 25% of your health. Usable while stunned, which is cool for the shield wall part. And it lasts 8 seconds, which means that you're not going to be able to get... Well, I guess you're going to be able to get 2 Bloodthirsts. If you use 1 Bloodthirst right when it starts, then you have 1. 4 seconds later, you can use another one, but after 4 seconds, you're not going to have that ability. So, basically, if you can get 2 Bloodthirsts off during this Enraged Regen cooldown, then you're going to be healing yourself for 50% of your health. But you actually have to be able to hit Bloodthirst. So, if you're using it while stunned, you'll only get the shield wall part of it. But if you come out of there, and you can use 2 Bloodthirst, then that's going to be a big heal for yourself. So, 2-minute cooldown on Enraged Regen. That's pretty standard for, I guess a lot of defensive cooldowns in the game are 2 minutes long. I know that Enhancement Shamans have Shamanistic Rage, which is on a 1-minute cooldown. Lasts twice as long and gives them the same amount of damage reduction. But Enhanced Shamans are different. I was just playing some Enhancement yesterday. Just to give you my basic assessment of Enhanced Shaman. Really cool mechanics, a little bit low damage. But anyway, that's what Enraged Regen is. Kind of interesting cooldown. It gives you the shield wall aspect and a little bit of healing, but you have to do something in order to be healed. I guess that goes along with the way that Fury Warriors are designed right now, where you're not leaving combat, man. You're in there to mix it up. You're doing damage and healing yourself off of that. So that's pretty interesting. But unfortunately, the Enraged Regen basically just negates the fact that when you're enraged, you take 30% more damage, so this is just bringing you back to baseline. But okay, interesting. I'm not, my feelings about this are mixed. I think it's okay. I'm basically just sort of going with the flow here. It's all alpha anyway. Regardless, Execute I don't think has changed very much. I don't think this Execute is as powerful as other, like Shadow Priest have an Execute, and I think Jenny and I were doing dungeons and her Execute was hitting for like 1 million, while mine was hitting for like 300k tops. But it's still a cool ability. It costs 40 rage, though. So Fury is definitely going to be a rage-intensive spec. One of the things that's cool is they brought back a sort of filler ability called Furious Slash. Previously, you could take a talent called Frenzy, which gave you an ability like this, but now it's just built into the spec. But yeah, It's a 4.16 second recharge. You usually have 2 little stacks of it. It takes 4 seconds for it to recharge. It's an aggressive strike with your offhand weapon that deals a certain amount of physical damage and generates rage. And the recharge is not very long. But it's a cool ability. I like that. I think that having an ability like this within Fury is cool. And I'll take you through the talents in a little bit and show you that you can actually still have this generate that haste buff that you wanted to if you take that talent. You still have Heroic Leap. I have it talented to be a shorter cooldown and give you a speed boost afterwards. Heroic Leap is pretty much similar. Heroic Throw is just basically Heroic Throw. You know, not a big damaging ability. Just gives you, I guess, a ranged pull option. Piercing Howl only costs 10 rage. Snares enemies, very similar to what it was before. Makes sense to me. Pummel, pretty much the same thing as it was before. Raging Blow, you know, it deals damage, only usable while enraged, but it generates 10 rage, which is nice because you're going to need a lot of rage. Rampage, this usually costs 100 rage, I believe. But it does a ton of damage, and it always deals damage as if you were enraged. So Rampage is going to be a big part of our warrior arsenal. And there are ways, 100 rage is a lot of rage, I understand. But there are ways in your talent tree that make it usable without, or make it usable more often without just sitting there auto-attacking till you get 100 rage. One of the ways I've done it is a talent that makes it cost half rage. So you'll see it only costs 50 rage for me. Yeah, there's another option that I can show you in a second. You also have Shockwave, and that's another talent. Basically, you have a stun talent or you have an AoE damage talent that I'll show you in a second. Whirlwind. Whirlwind seems to deal more damage than it used to. It costs 20 rage, and it looks really freaking cool, and I can show you a little bit in a while. And after using Whirlwind, your Raging Blow will strike an additional 4 targets, which is cool. So Enrage, obviously a big part of the Fury Warriors. Your Bloodthirst, Critical Strikes, or activating Berserker Rage from my talent will enrage you. This increases your attack speed by 100%, but you also take 30% more damage for 5 seconds. So you have a 100% increased attack speed, in addition to your Mastery, which makes you deal more damage while enraged as well. So for me, at level 101 with starting gear, I have 42% mastery, so that's going to probably go up a little bit. It might also go down as I level too. You know, once you get to level 110, you're probably going to have less than 42% mastery initially, but that's usually how it goes. Secondary stats on low-level characters are usually pretty high when you start leveling. Second Wind, this is a talent. Whenever you're out of combat for 5 seconds, then or you can be in combat, you haven't taken damage in 5 seconds, then you regen 6% health every 1 second, so that's pretty fun. Those are your abilities. Not a lot has changed. I guess we could also just quickly look at your artifact weapon. This is the first time you've seen about Fury stuff. You unleash the fiery power bestowed in your weapons by Odin, dealing a bazillion damage. You deal a huge hit and then a little dot afterwards, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's basically your abilities for Fury. The main ones that have changed. The Battle Cry, the name has changed. Enraged Regen, probably the biggest change, is the fact that it's now more of a shield wall with a healing that is dependent on you actually being able to use Bloodthirst. That's the biggest thing. Furious Slash is actually just part of your toolkit now, but it can be affected by your talents. Everything else is pretty much the same. Alright, let's go into our talents now. In terms of your talents, the first tier, you have Shockwave and Stormbolt as they are normally, but now you have Meat Grinder, which is for 8 seconds after using Whirlwind, your Rampage will strike an additional 4 targets for 50% damage. So that's, basically using Whirlwind is going to make you a cleave machine with Raging Blow and Rampage. That's an option that you have. If you don't want stuns in dungeons, you can just go AoE machine. I kind of like Shockwave because it just helps control mobs a little bit better, but all these are at your disposal. This tier has changed, definitely. War Paint reduces the damage take of... Basically, when you're enraged, it makes you only take 20% extra damage instead of 30. Might be worth it. 10% damage reduction is a big deal, but I still like the Heroic Leap cooldown being reduced and giving you extra speed. That's always nice. And Furious Charge making you take 20% less damage for 5 seconds after charging. That's not a new concept, but interesting. All these are pretty cool. I still like this one for now. In this tier, you have Endless Rage. Your auto attacks generate 50% additional rage, and I like that a lot, because I like to chain it with this talent too. But I think, I've said this for a long time, I think Warriors have such a cool, ability set. I think they have such a cool talent set because it allows for a lot of different builds that synergize well within itself. And I think that you can make a lot of those different builds and have this be really, really cool and a lot of fun. But I like Endless Rage. You also have access to Overpower, so everybody who's clamoring for having Overpower back, it is indeed back, at least right now, in the build of the Legion Alpha. It does a lot of damage, and it just randomly has a chance to be activated by your abilities. Can't be blocked, has an increased chance to be a crit, pretty much similar as last time. It costs 10 rage. It does a lot of damage for sure. It's a substantial hit. It's not my favorite ability to use for Fury, but I can definitely, you know, see it being used as Arms if Arms continues to be what it is in Warlords. But we'll see how Arms is in Legion. People asking about Arms, it's not available yet. I will definitely check it out when it is. Avatar, pretty much the way it is right now. 1.5 minute cooldown. You know, it gets you out of snares, gives you increased damage for 20 seconds. This is pretty cool if it works the same, if Dragon Roar works the same way as it used to. Because these two talents together give you an additional, like, you know, 20% increased damage, 20% increased damage. Huge, huge increases right there, which could just devastate your opponents. But I'm going for a little bit more rage. In this tier, Second Wind is really fun because, you know, once you go out of combat, you know, if you stay out of combat for a short period of time, not out of combat, I keep saying that. If you haven't taken damage in 5 seconds, then you're going to be able to regen a lot of health. So that's nice sort of between packs. I think most of the time, you're probably using double time though. Double time gives you 2 charges of charge, which is pretty cool. Imposing Roar. This makes your Commanding Shout, aka Rallying Cry, give you a leech effect. So you can you know, regen health by doing damage while it's active. It's a you know, it's a talent that's affecting something that is only going to happen every 3 minutes. You're going to be out of comp. You're going to be not taking damage every once in a while, more often, I think, than you're going to be, you know, every 3 minutes or so. I think the Second Wind is going to be more helpful. It's really nice for leveling. Might even be good for PvP. If you can, you know, heroic leap behind a pillar with no dots on you, you can regen to full health. Double time is just pretty standard, really nice talent. Gives you more access to mobility, which is good. Because you don't have as much mobility. You don't have Intervene now, so double time is going to be good. Unquenchable Thirst. And the next talent tier, Bloodthirst generates an additional 10 rage, which is nice. That's going to make Bloodthirst generate a total of 20 rage every time you use it. But for me, especially if I'm using Endless Rage, the auto attack one, I like Frenzy a lot. It makes your Furious Slash your new ability that you have. Increase your haste by 5% for 10 seconds. It stacks up to 5 times. So I like this talent already. It used to give you an ability that did this, but like I said, they basically took out the ability part and made it just a straight ability, but left the haste increase as a talent. I still really like the haste increase. It's a lot of fun in dungeons to keep your frenzy stacks really high, generate a ton of rage, and just pump out the deeps. And I'll post some gameplay for you guys too, some dungeon stuff as well, where you can see this in action. I love this talent. But you also have access to Bladestorm if you want that situationally. Bladestorm is pretty much the same as it always has been. It's a cool talent. Some people might still like using it, especially as an AoE option. But even for AoE, I think Frenzy's still great because you're generating enough rage to use Carnage all the time, or Rampage all the time. Carnage is a talent. Alright, so next talent tier we have Heroic Strike. Heroic Strike is not a damage dealing ability for Fury anymore. What it does is it's a way to spend rage to stack up, your Rampage to make it deal more damage. This can stack up to 3 times. It's off the global cooldown. So there used to be a talent where Rampage would use extra rage to deal more damage. Now Rampage just costs 100 rage, but you can make it deal even more damage by using Heroic Strike off GCD. So that's kind of a cool ability, kind of an interesting way of using rage to charge up an already high damage ability to make it deal even more damage. So that's an option. I'm currently using Outburst, which means that Berserker Rage now enrages you. It doesn't normally enrage you. It usually is just a fear breaker, basically. Now it enrages you, and it's on a 30-second cooldown. So this is nice because you can break out of fear every 30 seconds. So you still get the sort of CC breaker aspect of it on a shorter cooldown, but it also enrages you, which is nice. And this talent could really synergize well with this talent, but we'll get to that in a second. Massacre, crazy talent. Just is only usable at the very end of fights, usually. At least in PvE. For PvP, Execute, being able to execute somebody and then do a 100% increased no rage cost Rampage could be insane. In BGs, like you execute one person and then you just turn and Rampage somebody and kill them instantly. That's awesome. And you can probably get an Execute before they die. So you can basically just chain insane damage in a battleground. In Arena, it could be really good too. Like if somebody survives your Execute in Arena, then you have a 100% increased damage, no rage Rampage right afterwards. That could be insane. Right now I'm using Outburst just because I feel like it, but this could be a ridiculous talent for PvP for a lot of reasons. But that's one to keep your eye on, a Massacre right there. But it's also Execute critical strike, so you have to actually crit. But Fury Warriors have a pretty good chance to crit, especially if you pop Battle Cry first. Just make sure you Battle Cry before you crit, before you try to execute, so you get a guaranteed crit, and then you'll have probably a 100% increased damage, no rage cost, guaranteed crit Rampage after. So, like I said, this talent is insane. It requires a little bit of setup, but definitely want to keep your eye on. Right now I'm just using Outburst because, you know, why not? I will test this for sure though. Like I said, my spec that I have here is not set in stone. I'm just testing stuff out basically. But anyway, enough about Massacre. The next talent tier, I told you that these two abilities right here are the ones that let you use Rampage without just having to have 100 rage all the time by pooling it up. So this makes the reduces the cost of Rampage by 40 rage. So I guess it costs 90 rage normally. This is nice because you can basically use back-to-back Rampages whenever you have Battle Cry up. Or anytime, really. Whenever you have a lot of rage, you can use it back-to-back, which I think that's cool. Reckless and Abandoned, though, that's really nice. It reduces the cooldown of Battle Cry by 50%, so it makes it a 30-second cooldown, and causes it to generate 100 rage. So basically, what you're doing with this is you can use this and then Rampage, basically. You can use it twice. Well, no, you won't be able to use it twice, because you can only use it once, but I guess it's a guaranteed cooldown, or a guaranteed crit. But it also will synergize well with Outburst. If you wanted to have your Berserker Rage be 30-second cooldown, you could. But the problem with doing that is that you don't really need to do that because Rampage is already going to be doing damage as if you were in Rage. So using them together sort of makes sense, but at the same time, it wouldn't necessarily be the best. And the fact that you can only use Rampage once, even though you're going to be having a guaranteed crit, I think that using Carnage is nice because one of them you can use with Battle Cry, have it be a guaranteed crit, and then you can use another one right afterwards if you wanted to. So Reckless Abandoned is really cool if you want to generate the extra rage, if you want to have your guaranteed crit be on a shorter cooldown, but in terms of the way it synergizes with Rampage, it's not as just simple as the Carnage talent. But it's still really cool, and I mean, guaranteed crits on a 30-second cooldown with 100% rage, that's scary to deal with, so not a bad talent. It just doesn't synergize as well with Outburst. He's like, oh man, 30-second cooldowns, that would be great. But it doesn't synergize as well as you might think. Another option that you have is Dragon Roar. Dragon Roar is still doing what it used to do. You know, guaranteed crit, ignores all armor, but now it's also increasing your damage done by 20% for 6 seconds. So after you Dragon Roar, you're going to be dealing a ton more damage. So I can see some funny builds with like Avatar, Massacre, Dragon Roar, where you're dealing, you know, you have 20% damage increase, 20% damage increase, 100% damage increase on your Rampage, and just one-shotting a player from 100 to 0 with a Rampage. Like, I can see that kind of stuff happening with Fury, which makes me so happy. Like, there's so many fun builds. You can do a more consistent damage build. You can do what I'm doing right now, which is like a haste auto attack into, you know, lower cost Rampage build. So you can just do a ton of Rampages constantly. That sounds like a lot of fun, but there are so many options that players are going to be able to choose between. But don't get your heart too set on anything because, like I said, you know, this is alpha. Things change. Our talents have already changed a lot. They already made pretty substantial changes to our abilities. But even with those changes, things are looking really, really good. And I'm very, very excited about Fury because I mean, I don't know how long this video is. I feel like I've been talking about this for an hour because it's awesome. I'm excited about it, and I want to share it with you guys. Either way, it's going to bring us to the end of this video for now. Plenty more information on the way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!